any declarations of conflict of interest?
No?
Okay, can I get an approval of the agenda?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, are we, Communities in Bloom isn't put on this? And we could probably wait, I guess, since we have a recommendation from Public Works to go Communities in Blooms to here, but we can wait till the next meeting.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, since we're in a time restraint, I'm good.
Today, so we don't really have much time, so.
Yeah, okay, no, we'll be good,
Yeah.
we'll wait till the next one.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, can I get an
I'll
approval of the previous draft minutes that are attached?
I'll move it,
November
ma'am.
30th?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? All right, any business arising from the minutes?
No.
No?
Okay, so we can go right on to discussion items, and we can start with A, which is the Council Advisory Committee in terms of reference and structure. Before we get in too deep on that, the last council meeting we had, there was some appetite with some of the councilors that maybe this committee should change. So I just wanted to throw that out on the floor. Do we want to select a new committee for council advisory to send to council before we go any further? So I just wanted to put that out there for discussion and see what people want, whether or not we want to take the 3 core members off and replace them, like we talked about at the council meeting. And so I'll leave it to you for discussion, everyone.
Well, go ahead, Madam Chair. I was thinking about this, and when I take into account, I guess, that we're on a 4-year term here, at the beginning of the 4-year term, we said at the 2-year mark, we would evaluate the committees and make any changes that we thought were necessary. At that time, we did do that, and we decided, for the sake of consistency and not to hang anybody out to dry, that we would make, at a minimum, changes to all the chairmanships of the committee, rather than having just 2 change and having the general public that were interested say, well, those 2 people must have been doing a less than mediocre job, and that's why they changed. So we changed everybody, and that didn't satisfy a whole throng of people, but it's done. I guess my point is that the 2 major events for this committee in the 4-year term was the initial appointments, and 2 years later, the renewal, or a fresh look at the committees. So now we're kind of like, there might be a little bit of work to do, but not those 2 major events. Those are done till there's another election, and then the cycle begins again. So, plus the fact, so therefore, I think that explosion, if it was an explosion or whatever of thoughts, I think it's subsided now. And I'll just finish by saying that I had another point there, but I just kind of lost it for a moment. Yeah. If we were having an outcry from the residents who are here to serve, or even a comment, a negative comment from the residents, I would say maybe it's a time that we shuffle this committee up and get some fresh blood. Or if we had negative from the staff, who we also hope to serve here. I think the only negative from the residents that I heard anyway was from John Barrett and gang up beyond to have my head in the platter to change up the chairmanship of planning. You can do that anytime you want. But other than that, I haven't heard any negative comments. So I would kind of take the stance that we just stay as is for the remaining 23 months.
I guess I'll chirp in there, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Did you want to say something there before I start, or? Okay, so when we finished the 10 committees and then we realized we didn't change this one, I think it was under my recommendation that the chair gets changed, of course, and that we left the committee together. I thought we did a great job. I mean, it's never easy. I mean, someone's going to feel out, someone's going to be feeling high, and And I remember vaguely saying that, you know what, there was nobody here in this room had an agenda looking, trying to get something done for themselves. We were all here for the better good of the city of Charlottetown. And that was the reason I think we said, you know what, yeah, you're right, we did a good job here, and nobody, you know, I mean, we all sacrificed ourselves. Like, you know, if we were supposed to be paid and things, I'm pretty sure Mike wouldn't want planning, and I'm pretty sure Councillor Cody probably wouldn't want finance. I mean, we all kind of took one in the chin, and that's my 2 cents worth. I mean, you know, some people aren't happy, but that's because they didn't get what they want. Well, is that reason enough to make a change? I don't think so. Sorry. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth. I think we should leave it where it is.
Thank you. Not to put you on the spot, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Cody or the mayor, but do you have anything to weigh in on this too?
Yeah, I can start. I guess I don't want to make it look like we're self-serving and not change the committee. I kind of have a feeling either, you know, we do it here internally, or maybe it's going to be done for us if the information you hear is accurate. But like Councillor Duffy said, I think most of the heavy lifting is done now for all intents and purposes. But like I say, if it's a peacekeeping matter, you know, I'm fine with it. It's like we said, it's not an easy committee to sit on. You're never going to please everybody. So if somebody else wants it, they can try their hand at it, as far as I'm concerned.
And Madam Chair, if I go back to the procedural bylaw that existed before 2018, under committees and reports, Part 14, standing committees, subsection 14.1, the mayor may appoint from among the members of council, from among the members of the council such standing committees as he or she considers appropriate for the better transaction of the business of the council. And now we have section 40.1 that deals with what we're talking about now. It's the first effort of this council advisory committee. Did it work perfectly? No. But did we learn from appointments made and how we processed applications to sit on advisory committees, boards, agencies? I think it worked, and I think it does have some work to make it better and make it more efficient. So, you know, for myself, I leave it as status quo. We have some other committees and other issues to handle, deal with them. And with the new council, they may want to look at 2 years per, like all the other standing committees and advisory committees, 2 years, review everything and reappoint if we have to. So for me, status quo, and let's move on.
Madam Chair, I further just add that if that's the feeling of the majority of the committee here judging themselves, I would all be for as putting that forward to council and let them agree with us or disagree with us. In other words, that's how we decide most things around here, is by a democratic vote. Then, do you see any advantage to that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilor Hancock.
Well, I'll just look to you as the committee. What would you like? Does the committee just decide within this whether we move forward, or do we put a resolution on the floor to take to council that the council advisory committee is staying status quo? I'm not sure how that. If anyone has any suggestions on to follow up with what Councillor Duffy had said.
That to me sets the precedent. Look, we've discussed it. We've taken the concerns from the other councillors. We've discussed it here. You know, Councillor Duffy, I know what you mean by it should go back to council, but we have 4 members of council on this council advisory committee. And again, look, it's nothing's perfect. And we're finding that with the piece of art at the corner of Queen and Richmond Streets, right? It's an ongoing process. So I'm just.
My only point was that this group is a recommending body to council.
Yeah.
And this would be the first time we made the decision rather than a recommendation. But I was just suggesting it, I'm not pushing it, I'm just saying, if you want a further verification, for down the road, 3 or 4 months when somebody pops up and says, you guys should be there anyway, I just put it on the floor for thought, rather than anything else.
Council already approved the committee makeup, and unless you're prepared to change it or post a vacancy or two, then that you've already made that decision, unless you're going to alter it.
Okay, there we go.
Again, the new council 2022, they may look at putting terms, like 2-year term review, repopulate. That again, we're learning from this process, which I think is better for all of us.
Okay, is there any other further discussion on this? So I'm assuming I'm hearing from the committee that everyone just wants to leave things as was already voted at council back when the committee structures were changed in November?
Yes, yep.
Yes.
Okay. That's the majority of the committee, okay. Anything else? And do we need then to discuss, there were 2 councillors that had requested to the CAC that they wanted to change committees. Is there any more discussion that we should be having on that for the 2, one who doesn't want to sit on one and one had asked for some changes to their portfolio?
So to be fair to
Is there any
them,
discussion that we should be having on that?
to be fair to them, Madam Chair, if they did request a potential change, then obviously this committee can recommend that change to council, so it is worth a discussion as to what you may want to do, if anything.
Okay, well, I'll open the floor. I think we're all aware that Councillor Twill is not
We in closed
interested
session.
for his own reasons for not
If I
staying
could, Madam
on.
Chair, we're still in open session, so without discussion, we may want to go in after we finish the rest of the agenda, just go behind closed doors to discuss those issues.
Good idea.
Oh, okay, sure. So then, do you want to go on to these other 3 then, the advisory committees, minute taking, and we'll go from there? Is that the idea?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the
So we're still in open.
advisory,
Still.
yes, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, just making sure that where we were, we're still in open session.
Yes.
We are in open session, yes,
Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so then moving on to advisory committee's minute-taking responsibilities.
Okay, so,
Peter, I think I'll turn that one over to you.
Mr. Kelly, do you have the document?
No.
Okay, I do have it. I have copies. I wonder if someone just can take a photo and send it to Councillor Yankoff? Just, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Madam Chair, the background on this agenda item came from our monthly or weekly meetings that we have, myself included, with Doug Dumay, our Community Engagement Officer, and Jill Stewart, the admin assistant. And the issue of advisory boards, and you'll be getting a picture of that, Madam Chair, so you can see what we're talking about, is that you have the following committees: Affordable Housing, Arts Advisory, Civic Board for Persons with Disabilities, Mayor's Task Force on Active Transportation, Seniors Engagement Committee, Youth Engagement Committee, and the Food Council. So what we have are staff people that do attend these advisory committee meetings. They have been tasked to take the minutes, and a request here is that it becomes much more of a task than just a minute taken. There's some of the meetings are recorded, so they have to be dictated or copied by what they hear and put in minute form, handed to the chair or the committee, standing committee responsible for it to get a review, any admissions or any additions or omissions have to be clarified or cleared by the committee chair or the committee responsible. Hence, they're asking that it should be a responsibility of someone on the advisory committee to take the minutes, and then they would forward them to the staff person responsible for that committee to get them printed, get them formatted, so any response?
I'm pretty sure that we kind of laid that out at the start, that each committee was to appoint a secretary to look after the minutes. I know the one under Public Works there, the Civic Board of Persons with Disabilities, there's that one, and then the task force, the multi-task force, when they do their own minutes. Although some of the staff go to the meetings as well, but I think that was the understanding, was that each committee, advisory committee, was to assign one of their community board members to be the secretary. I'm pretty sure that's the way it's supposed to work.
It wasn't that clear, but the intent is, as his worship says, is to let them take their own,
Right.
choose someone. They would then hand those, they would send them by Word document to us, just to be, to admin support, just make sure it does follow a format. And then they would be responsible for their own
Right.
process. And that way that frees up time of the staff who have had to go to those over and above the other responsibilities.
So I guess, I mean, can we put it in a little clearer form maybe for each committee, so whatever standing committee that these fall under, that we make sure that the chair of those advisory committee know that, right? That'd be the next step, would be to make sure
So the
that,
chair will view them before they come to us, is that what you're asking?
yeah, like it should be clear that, you know, that what the minute taking process is good enough, that it isn't going to be coming here all full of mumbo jumbo, right? So,
Because those minutes are, that's public record,
Right.
right? So if it's going into the public,
Yeah. So what
we
I
have to
think-
make sure that we recheck,
Yeah.
that it follows, you know, a format that you don't use
Like the
words that
staff-
are inappropriate, that it's all vetted through, that it's
Yeah.
it's a public document.
whatever staff member is kind of, that's the committee is sending their minutes to, spend a few minutes with that person to say, look, you know, this is the procedure and what you gotta do for your
So it's the
business.
staff member that gives the okay to turn it over?
No, it would be the chair, sorry, whoever does it, the chair would have to validate that they're
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
Then he would ask him or her to forward them to our staff to make sure it follows the proper format.
Right.
You follow that, Councilor?
Yeah, but the committee doesn't become involved.
No,
No,
The committee will, after it goes back to them for approval, so these are only draft minutes, and they go back to them.
I'm done with the standing committee.
Oh.
No, this is not the standing committee at all. The standing committee has the Tracy McLean's, the Chantel Matheson's, they take care of the minutes.
So this is the essence of what they're asking here.
Correct. Are you all right with that? And again, in terms of making sure that all the committee members of this advisory board or agency has to approve, no, when the minutes come to the next meeting, there is approval of minutes. So if someone doesn't agree with what was said in that last meeting, they can make amendments to it. But it just to ensure, and I want to make sure that, you know, there are some committees where our staff people want to keep doing it. So do we allow that to continue?
If they want to be, as well, like I understand, Doug will be part of the youth advisory workshop, and that's great, because he can bring that perspective here. And there may be others who have an interest in those other.
But we're all ready to go ahead
Yeah,
with that.
Sure, if they want to do that, that's great.
well, I think what happened is some staff and managers with different, had felt that some of the committees need that structure, right? And I know like the Civic Board of Persons with Disabilities, for example, Rebecca out at the Public Works Building, she takes the minutes for that, and she works closely. Matter of fact, I've been trying to get to the meetings as much as I can, and she reports the minutes to me, and I approve them, and then it goes to Scott to put on the meeting whenever we do a Public Works meeting, but that's the process, I think it should work, yeah.
Is that all right, Madam Chair?
Sure, so do we need to take this to council, or is this just more of an administrative conversation?
It's more of an internal approach of how committees will function, that's all.
Okay, so we don't need a resolution to move to council or anything, this is just,
It's here for information, basically.
Yeah, just
so all of the committee is okay with this?
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Okay, well, we can move on to C, because I know we're getting pressed for time here. And we have the Urban Vision 2050 Board of Directors appointment. This seems to be back again. With the background I have on this, I believe this is back, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, this is back because there was some confusion about what the Urban Vision 2050 Board of Directors was asking for, whether or not it was for the chair of planning or a specific person. So is there any more conversation on this? Any more information that anybody can share?
From what we understand, it could be any member of council, and it didn't have to be the chair of planning, and I think the prior councillor who was appointed was hoping to stay, I think.
Did we not appoint two, Mr. Kelly?
So,
Councillor Yankoff is in her capacity there, Your Worship, under the guild.
no.
No,
but
yeah, I'm not
so
there.
Originally,
I'm nothing to do with the city on my appointment on
Yeah.
that.
I know.
originally, we had asked, and anyone that wanted to be on that committee, and there was two names put forward, and council approved it, and that was Greg Rivera and Terry McLeod. So then, the committee come back to us, Alana, I believe you remember, suggesting that they wanted to one, and I believe Greg was picked. So then, but since that, I think there's been some conversation that no, that the 20 Vision Committee really wanted the person from planning, the chair of planning, be on that committee. Now, that's where I'm at with it, but I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. But that's
Well, when I spoke to Mr. Homburg,
right.
he had said he was just very grateful to get any counselor, he's happy to work with any counselor that happens to be recommended. So that was the information that I got from a conversation with Mr. Homburg, that he had no preference. He was happy to work with anyone, and quite grateful to get somebody recommended to the committee.
So, Madam Chair, the conversation that I had with Mr. Philip Homburg was that planning would be the most appropriate committee, or the chair of that committee, to sit on this Urban Vision 2050 board, because we're talking about planning for 2050 and beyond. And I believe one of the councilors said he didn't say that. Well, I know the conversation I had with him, and Urban Vision 2050 is about how we want to see what will Charlottetown and area look like 2050 and beyond. So that's why I was asking, or made a request, or suggested that it should be planning. But you know what? If we want to keep the councillor that's currently on it, I have no issue. Do you?
In as
What
much
does
as
committee want?
they haven't met,
Recommends to council.
they haven't met yet.
Yes, we said. I think we did prove Greg.
Both of you. Both of you.
Yeah, both, but then they wanted one, but I think.
No, but we didn't rescind the resolution with both of you. We have to rescind that.
Okay,
That has to be rescinded.
okay, so you have to bring that forward then, Alana, we'll have to.
What's that? What did the committee say? What are we doing?
Well, I think we're gonna rescind the resolution of where both names were put forward, and then a resolution put forward to accept Greg Rivera as the person, because that's who we picked, unless we want to reach out to Hamburg again to say, what do you want? But if you don't want to do that, then just Greg's name was picked, let's let him go.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, I think they
Mr.
requested
Mr.
a
Homburg was quite clear with
A
me.
member of council,
That
yeah.
just a member.
he was quite happy with whoever council recommends, and he would look forward to working with any of the councilors.
So that would be the procedure then, we'll rescind the two names and then just put Greg's
Yeah.
name forward to vote for council.
Is that all right?
Is committee good with that? Is everyone there in
Yay,
favor of
Greg is
that?
saying yay, I'm saying yay, Mike's saying yay, the mayor is saying yay.
Thank you.
Seeing as they haven't met, it wasn't hard to work into my schedule.
Okay, thank you. And so the next thing on our list is the number of standing committees. Peter, or who brought this to the agenda?
So this has been an issue Councillor Duran has asked several times, and other councils have talked about it from time to time, as to whether or not we can consolidate the committees into less committees, and maybe have 4, 5, 6 standing committees rather than 10 or 11, and which would loosen or lessen the workload, in theory, of the amount of meetings that you would have. So it's up to you folks what you want to do. If you want us to look at it further.
We did kick that around, and every time we tried to match up to the committees, nothing would work. And you might have less committees, but you're going to be here longer.
That's right.
So there's 6 and 1/2 dozen the other is to,
There's so much work to do.
there's so much work.
There's so many people to do it,
You know.
regardless of how you divide it. You divide it into 2 and have 2 committees,
Yeah.
but you're going to be here 5 times as long as you are now. Like, I mean, that's the way it is. The workload is not going to shrink,
No.
or the population of the council is not going to increase.
No.
So there's not going to be a beneficial effect. It's just going to be, you know, if you want to spend an afternoon a month going to 4 different committees or, you know, whatever. I'm not violently one way or the other, but I mean, we don't want to look a little silly going down this road for 4 months only to find out that most councillors can't participate at that high level of it. Deputy Mayor Cody, for example, has another job. You have another job.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I think the council advisory, again, we did a pretty good job at lessening the workload of those councillors that didn't want to be as busy as they were,
Good point.
right? We definitely did that. And for example, you know, there are some councillors that are on 5 and 6 committees, and there's some councillors that are only on 3,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know what else can be done. It was, you know, because we did think, remember we tried putting finance and HR together, was it, or? Yeah, and then there's just
Public Works, water, sewer.
yeah, water, so- but every scenario kind of come back that it wouldn't really matter. You're still going to be here the same amount of time. You mightn't have as many trips, but you're going to be here each trip a lot longer. So I don't know what the advantage would be at this point.
And Madam Chair, again, I go on record by reiterating what Mayor George McDonald said back in '97. He tried this. They did consolidate. You can ask the guy whose desk I'm sitting at. And after several months, he said, no, we went back to the 10 committees because chair gets the opportunity to stand up, talk to the public, talk to the camera, and sits down, has a drink of coffee, and then waits for the next opportunity. So I think we've already discussed this issue. How many times do we have to? Appreciate that, you know, it comes back to me, status quo.
Okay, so is that the general consensus of committee?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'm just in the standing committees. Could I just add that the Strategic Priorities Committee met yesterday, and it was agreed to continue with the Affordable and Accessible Housing Advisory Committee and the Youth Advisory Committee. So we have to get an opportunity to sit down soon to populate those 2 committees.
So there's 4 vacancies on one and 4 on the other one if we want to hold them both at the number of 7. The committee did agree, as the mayor indicated, to give them a 6-month extension to see if they can come back with a refined approach in terms of tasks or things that they want to achieve. And so we will help them do that, but we will need to either advertise again, or we can go back to the old list, but the old lists are 2 years old. So you may want to advertise if it is your intent to keep those going forward, and we can bring those back to the next meeting.
And actually, it's, they gave us 7 months. Because
So what would committee like to do with that?
Well, I think maybe, Madam Chair, we could probably just, unfortunately, book another session, and we could deal with Communities in Bloom and deal with the committees at the same time.
Good.
And I would have another topic that we could deal with.
Okay, good.
Okay. You go with that, Alana?
Sure, that's a good idea, especially because we're really pressed for time and you know, and we still under, before we go into a quick closed session, the other thing that was missed on this in terms of other business is we still have to deal with a council appointment to the Capital Cities Committee that falls under Councillor Ramsey's committee, and he has chosen not to want to be that committee member, so we need to take a council person's name to the next, council meeting for the council to approve a rep for that.
Okay.
Because there's a meeting coming up and our staff person Laura Lee is going to need a counselor to sit on that committee.
Who's the vice chair of that committee? Madam Chair?
Pardon me?
Who's the vice chair of that committee?
Strategic priorities?
Yeah.
Greg Rivard, I think.
Shouldn't that be who that falls to, normally? If the chair can't attend or won't attend,
Yeah.
the vice chair? Just makes it cleaner.
Yeah, it's fine, it's whatever name you want to take
Yeah.
forward to council.
We can check and see if he wants it first.
Yeah,
We'll check and see if he wants it first, Madam Chair. If not, we'll have to come back here.
Yeah, so that'd be another.
okay, so we're gonna check and see if Council Rivard would like to take that role.
Okay.
And if he does, can we take that resolution to our monthly council meeting the week after next?
Sure.
If the committee
Okay.
agrees.
Yeah.
These plums are starting to turn into raisins with the travel ban. Before one.
So is everyone good with, reaching out to, Peter will reach out to Council Rivard to see whether or not he would like to take
Yeah.
that committee as well?
You being the chair, Lane, I suggest that you make that contact with them, and also you fill it in a couple of times as well. You be very good at telling them that, you know, it's a fair amount of work too. It's not just one of the regular, where you go on a trip, there's a fair amount of work to that.
For sure, well, do you want me to, when I reach out to
Yeah.
Council Rivard, I can also let him know that we'd be taking his name forward for the, Vision 2050 appointment as well?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
okay, if committee's good with that, I can do that.
And it still has to be approved by council though at the meeting, but,
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Also to make sure we're not sending names forward and then he's gonna turn around and not want it, so,
Could I ask, Madam Chair,
all right.
could I ask if we could meet within the next couple of weeks before the council meeting? Could we do
Sure.
that? And then we don't have to go into closed session because then we can deal with that at the next meeting. I think that's what you suggested,
yeah.
Councilor
Yeah,
McLeod?
yeah,
Is that all right? Because it's 12:35.
yeah.
Okay.
Is that all right with you?
Okay, yeah. We are gonna get some pushback that we're not dealing with the specific thing that was requested by two councilors. That's
No,
up to committee. If we
But
want to-
that'll be at the next meeting before
before?
council meeting.
Okay,
we'll try to have one next week if we can, Madam Chair.
Is that a possibility?
okay.
I think next
Sure,
week's
and then that way we can have it before the next monthly meeting of council.
In February, yeah, in February.
Okay.
2 weeks away.
Okay,
Yeah.
Peter. Okay, all right, well then, in essence of time, it's 12:36, I know finance needs to start. If there's nothing else, I guess we should have a motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Stay
you
safe.
all, okay.